Hello, good morning, and welcome to our 35th Holding Space for Self and Others webinar. Today, we have an exciting presentation for you on building secure attachments with babies. Robin Ball, who's going to be our presenter, is an experienced clinician working with babies and families, and she's got a great presentation for you today. So welcome and glad you can be with us. Whether you're joining us live or whether you're watching this recording later on, it's really lovely to have your company. My name's Jackie Short. I'm the Director of Sydney Centre for Creative Change, and we run a host of online trainings in creative and expressive therapies for clinicians working with children, young people, adults, groups and families. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that I come to you from today, the Eora people of the Gadigal Nation, and pay our collective respects to elders past, present and emerging on this wide. Robin is an infant and family mental health educator who's passionate about positive attachment relationships. She initiated the Self-Worth Beyond Birth project in 2019 and loves teaching about emotional health in babies. Robin combines baby-led play, behaviour states of infants, together with infant brain and body development to increase parents' and clinicians' confidence in understanding attachment behaviours of babies. And this is some of what she's going to be presenting about today. So we're very excited to have her, and I'd like to welcome Robin. Over to you.
Thank you, Jackie. Welcome to everybody this morning. I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. Can you all see the screen? There, great. Okay, so firstly I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation from where I come from, down in Melbourne, and to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. They've been raising their families for generations and continuing to be connected to land and culture. And I'd also like to welcome, acknowledge any Indigenous people who may be present today. So welcome to this webinar on supporting secure attachment relationships with babies. I hope you enjoy this presentation. So as Jackie said, I'm an infant and family mental health practitioner, and I love learning and sharing about current knowledge around mental health in babies. I have a website called Self-Worth Beyond Birth, and you can also download a free ebook on baby brain development in the first 12 months, which I did with my friend and maternal child health nurse, Lucy Bire. I also facilitate the Circle of Security Parenting program, generally via Zoom, sometimes face-to-face, and I offer individualised training packages to organisations, providing information about what can be shared with parents and caregivers around linking early brain development and first relationships with long-term mental health. So I've got a quote here, a baby's a person in their own right, and therefore they're born with mental health needs. So the infant mental health approach is that each one of us we're really profoundly tied to our relationships with others. And our first relationships with babies can help to foster this secure sense of their emerging self that can grow and blossom throughout the joys and challenges and the roller coaster of life. So psychologist and Professor Louis Cozolino adds that what we call mental health could be more accurately described as emotional, physical, and social health, as the brain is shaped by the environment. So this webinar will explore some key developmental milestones, and then the 6 main communication behaviour states of babies, and then how we can support parents in cultivating secure attachment relationships, which are integral to their baby's social, emotional, physical and cognitive health. In this slide, I'm just going through the 3 stages of the presentation. The first, we'll be talking about the human brain development in the first 12 months. And then I'll be going on to talk about the developmental milestones, feelings and needs. And then the middle part of the webinar is about behavioural states. We'll be looking at deep sleep and light REM sleep. The next 2 are quiet alert and then active alert. And then the last 2, states of drowsiness and crying. I'll also be talking about compassionate care for ourselves. And the third part of the webinar, we'll be talking about serve-and-turn conversations that we can have with our babies using this approach called the WA approach, WWA. So yeah, as Jackie said, during this webinar, I invite you to draw on your own experiences with your clients, with your families, and in your personal life, and see how this may inform your work. You might like to think of a family that you work with and bring them to mind as we go through the webinar. Okay, I'm going to start with early brain development. So at birth, I've got this pomegranate. So I have 2 pomegranate trees, and I was going to have a live one, but I've actually cut them all up and used them in jams. And but this is about the average weight of a baby's brain when it's born, 400 grams. And I've also got a tin of tomatoes here. That's about a tin of, we all probably know what the weight of a tin of 400-gram tin of tomatoes. That's about the weight of a baby's brain when they're born. So in the first 3 months, the baby's brain grows from from 400 grams to around 700 grams, which is about the average size of a medium-sized coconut. So this averages out to approximately 100 grams per month. And if I just pick up my mouse here, I weighed the mouse, it's about 80 grams. So yeah, just over the weight of a mouse, 100 grams per month for 3 months. And then by 12 months, a baby's brain will grow for another 200 grams to about 900 grams, which is more than double the weight at birth. So this averages out to about 20 grams per month for the rest of the 12 months. And then by the age of 3, a baby's brain is about 80% of the adult size. And an adult sized brain is about 1,400 grams. I've got a kilo of brown sugar here. So, by 12 months, a baby's brain is about just under that weight of a kilo of sugar. It's quite amazing. So when a baby's born, only 20% of the 100 billion neurons at birth have actually made connections. So there's still 80% of the brain neurons to still connect. So this gives us a wonderful window of opportunity in the growth and development of our babies' brains. Babies' brains, they're ready and they're wired for human experiences and for connection right from birth. And the brain cells that get used, they get strengthened, and the ones that don't, they get pruned. The brain research shares with us that brain structures are built through our earliest relational experiences. And there's a really great link to a very short 2-minute video from the Harvard Center for the Developing Brain. And I'll give that to Jackie that she can share with you all. And it basically shares that it's our responses to babies that can moderate or strengthen our baby's inborn traits. And certain styles of interacting with babies will have a significant effect on the stress systems and the long-term chemical balance in babies' brains and bodies. So particular ways of responding to a baby will help to establish these pathways in their brain to enable optimal brain and body development. So this is a graph from the Harvard Center for the Developing Child. It's used by economists and researchers and educators to demonstrate this cost-benefit analysis. So the brain's ability to change in response to experience is highest at birth. So that's the blue line. And the orange line shows us the amount of effort that such change does require. So, we now understand that brain plasticity lasts our whole life, and it's never too late for brain pathways to change. However, it just does take a little bit more time and effort as we age. I've got a lovely quote here from Maggie Dent, who's an author and parenting educator and speaker, that the brain wires all positive experiences like a web over all future experiences, and it builds a sense of anticipation about how life will be. So a major ingredient in this developmental process is what we call these serve and return interactions, which I'll be talking in the final part of this webinar. These serve and return interactions between children and their parents and other caregivers in their family or community. I'm going to go through the 2 key developmental milestones for babies. The first one, the balancing of the body systems. And we call this homeostasis, the definition being the tendency towards relatively stable equilibrium. So when a baby is in the womb, the environment is regular and relatively unchanging. And babies really need to be supported gently as their body organs start to function when they're born, as many of these new body sensations will be new for them. The milk moving down the esophagus, their wind coming up, emptying their bowels. All of these sensations are new, and they can be scary for a newborn as their body works to find a new balance in this outside world. So this first 3 months is a transition phase, and it's sometimes referred to as the 4th trimester for the baby as they readjust to their new world, and also for the parent's body as they adjust after birth, and for each parent getting used to the reality of having this new little person in front of them. So babies especially need support in minimising their worries. So the second fundamental milestone is trust. Their parasympathetic nervous system is very underdeveloped, and at birth it's a fundamental need for babies to be in relationship with caring adults. So calm and consistent approaching behaviours to babies leads to the baby feeling safe and trusting that their needs will be met. And this includes reacting to your voice as friendly or not, your friendly face and voice, delighting in them just as they are, lights up their brain like a Christmas tree. And it is the foundation for self-esteem. So the first 12 months of your baby, they need lots of time falling in love with the parent, with the parent's face, and the parents falling in love with the baby. And sometimes this doesn't come straight away, and that's totally fine. It's a process that develops over time. The second part of this first section, I'm going to be going through about feelings and needs in babies. And I've got some 3 pictures here. I'd like you to put in the chat what you think these babies might be feeling. Maybe we'll start with the first one. And, it's all about the context as well. Different faces can mean different things. So just have a guess. There's no right or wrong answer. And Jackie's going to read out, some of the things that you do put in the chat about what do you think this first baby might be feeling?
Got a few people suggesting this baby might be hungry, number 1. Any other
yes.
things that it could be feeling, maybe? Or maybe discomfort, digesting after a meal, intrigued when she saw her mum poke her tongue out, like it's done a poop, curious, hungry. We've got a few responses there.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's right. It's all about context. So we we never really know what a baby's feeling, but we can make some guesses. So the guess that I've made just for today is that, it could be hungry. The baby's got his tongue out, maybe it might be needing a feed. This is one of the, 4 fundamental feelings of babies. Okay, what about the next one? If you'd like to put some things in the chat of what you think this next baby might be feeling.
We've got happy, joyful, maybe sad or in pain, playful, happy, contented, entertained, happy and content.
Lovely. Okay, so this is the feelings of pleasure. Babies have this feelings of pleasure. And what about the third one?
Anguish, discomfort, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Different responses: agony, upset, hungry, distressed.
Yeah. Yep. So there we go. So yeah, this, the baby's feeling pain or discomfort or some sort of uncomfortable feelings. Thank you. So they're 3 feelings. I'm going to move on to the next slide, which is the 4th. I've got a 4th one here, which is loving connection. Feelings of loving connection. And we try to guess what these feelings are by observing what we see in the physical body responses and the vocal sounds of the baby. Okay. So underneath feelings, we have 4 fundamental needs. We have the caregiver's face. Holding a baby's gaze provides this containing emotional environment for the baby to feel loved and special. We have the voice and the friendly tone. and being curious in our mind what might be happening in the baby's mind, their feelings, their needs, and what they're trying to communicate to us. And then the third need about the physical holding and feeding. And we talk about the physical holding as really leading to feelings of emotional support and connection and safety. So the physical holding leads to the feeling of emotional holding and emotional safety. And then the fourth need, the gentle rhythmic movements in daily activities, like in the womb, like replicating that a little bit when they're outside, when they've been born in those early months. So the aim is to support the parents in building their confidence and their capacities in having a framework to understand their baby's internal states. And we do this through physical holding, containment, and language. And we also know that babies who are born blind, they smile at around the same time that babies who have vision. And I just think this is really interesting. It's not, the vision is important, but it's also about, the other sensory experiences that the babies experience, and tone of voice, and all of the combination of interactions and what they hear and feel. So this is the end of the first section. I've just got a little summary slide about at birth, only 20% of the 100 billion neurons have made connections, and this is a wonderful window of opportunity. In the first 3 months, the brain nearly doubles in size from 400 grams to 700 grams, and then by 12 months, the baby's brain is about 900 grams. And that baby's brains, they're wired for human connection. And then I talked about the two fundamental milestones of balancing of the baby's systems and the importance of trust with caring adults. And then in this section, just the fundamental feelings and needs that babies have. I'm going to now be moving on to the middle part of the webinar, which is talking about the 6 behavioural states in babies and the functions of these behaviour states. Okay, the first one is deep sleep and then light sleep. So the deep sleep state, this is the deep restorative sleep we call it, is mostly very still, apart from that, gentle rise and fall of the chest, and maybe an occasional flicker or startle. And the breath might change briefly. So deep sleep is associated with lower oxygen uptake and the release of growth hormones. And it's where the body starts repairing, the immune system, the muscle tissue, and the energy stores. And this results in the baby having energy to respond to you and to feed on waking up. So being able to stay in this sleep after being in the relatively peaceful environment of the womb, it's no mean feat for babies. And having to learn to preserve their sleep in the face of an ever-changing world, I think it's quite an astonishing achievement. So these baby twins, they sleep during the day in the living area. They live on a farm with lots of coming and going, lots of outdoors, lots of talking with dogs barking, tractor sounds, and they've also got a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old siblings. They both are really quite competent at selectively tuning out the external sounds and the lights, and even some of the sounds that are quite loud and sudden, like the repetitive sound of a dog barking or a door sort of slamming shut, and not a flicker. However, this is where really careful observation is needed, because some babies might find it difficult to settle or stay settled with high levels of sound in their immediate environment. And if this is the case, if babies do have low tolerance for outside stimulation, they need a great deal of energy to protect their sleep. And if they're putting all that energy into protecting their sleep, they don't have as much energy left when they wake up for feeding and playing. So that can be challenging. This is the light REM sleep. You can see the little baby in light REM sleep. So before a baby is born, they sleep most of their time in REM sleep. And from birth, babies spend nearly half of their time in this REM sleep. So it's a little bit different to deep sleep, which has the repair function. The light REM sleep is associated with the processing of information. So their body might move occasionally and stretch. You might see a little pucker of the lips or a sucking, or the eyes might open briefly. And you can see with this little baby, there's a little faint smile there, but the baby doesn't wake up. So back to the twins. You can see the twin on the left there is in REM sleep and the one on the right is in deep sleep. So as babies grow up, they start to spend less time in REM sleep and more time in the deep sleep. However, there's really no simple chart for outlining sleep cycle or the length of REM by age, as all babies are unique. And just like us adults, there's a really wide range of how long babies will need to sleep during the day. So the difference between infants who sleep the most and those who sleep the least is greatest at birth. So a newborn, may sleep anywhere from 9, 10, 11, 12 hours up to 20 hours a day, and the whole range is normal. So this means that, your baby might sleep for half as much as your, friend's baby down the road, and both are completely normal. And this is really the same for different types of stimulation. So it's really great to be curious about observing, your unique baby's developmental timeline, because each is unique and different. And your baby sleeping is a fluctuating thing in the first 3 months. And as their sleep changes, their sleep cycles will change as well. So we may need to surrender some of our control, as our ability to influence our newborn sleeping is maybe not as large as our newfound responsibility as parents. And also note, because babies are not born with a strong circadian rhythm, sleep training is not possible for newborns. Now, I've just got a little note here on the circadian rhythm. Basically, it's that night-day response that our body follows, and newborns haven't developed this yet, because they've been in the dark for 9 months, and it takes about, 6 to 8 weeks at least for babies' bodies to start to readjust to the circadian rhythm. And there is some evidence that shares that putting your baby in a blacked out room can sometimes slow down that development of the day and night rhythm. So sleeping in a lighter room can help babies adjust to their new 24-hour clock. Okay, we're up to quiet alert. I've got a picture here of the twins again. So in this, the twin on the left is in quiet alert. I'm going to just play the video. Twin there. It's very little body movement. You can see the eyes are open and wide and very focused on her little brother. So in this state, there's often steady, regular breathing. The baby's quite responsive and interactive, and it does require effort, and it's very tiring for babies. So this quiet alert state, it's really important because it's the optimal time for activities like holding and interacting and feeding and bathing and reading stories and having what we'll talk about later, the serve and turn conversations that are so important. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the active alert stage. Got the same video because the baby on the right is in what I would say would be the active alert. So you can sort of see there's increased body activity, and the movements tend to be a little bit more jerky, maybe sometimes a little bit more disorganized, and might produce some startles. So one way that it might go is that the baby might still be available for sensory stimulation in this active state. They might be soothed or brought back to the quiet alert state by attractive stimuli like your friendly face or your smiles, or following something else that's happening in their environment. Or another way it might go, that the baby might be transitioning into this drowsy state and they might be needing to sleep. So, each baby, they differ greatly in their ability to cope with different types of stimulation. Some babies thrive on high levels of stimulation, and others are less tolerant, and they need time-out breaks from interacting with the environment before re-engaging. And I think if we're honest, I think we're no different. It can be really easy to mistake expressions of overstimulation for a look of surprise or intense interest. So the baby might look away or slightly turn their head. And they might have arched eyebrows, like in this photo. They might, cover their face with their hands, or your baby may become wide-eyed or fixated on an object, or looking into the distance and be unable to, break that gaze or turn away. So these behaviours may indicate a struggle to stay focused. Too much excitement or overstimulation can exhaust or overwhelm our babies. so that they can become too tired and unable to engage in social situations. Come to the state of drowsy. And we call this a transition state of really neither being awake or asleep. It's a bit like being in limbo land. Not really sure if your baby wants to go into the reassuring calm of sleep or to remain in that inviting new world of exploration. So the baby's eyes might be half open, or the overall focus might look glazed, like the baby in this slide. And it might look as if your baby's not looking at anything in particular. So in this drowsy state, your baby is asking you to pause or wait for the next communication cue. So I'm just guessing, like if they could talk, they might be saying something like, give me time so I can wake up and enjoy feeding and looking at you. Or they might be saying something like, watch over me while I go to sleep. Or maybe, I'm okay to have you just merely out of my sight. Now, we don't really know, but this is where your observation of your baby comes in, to observe their behaviours and to experiment and play with this. Some babies' body behaviours are really quite clear from the beginning, and many babies need support to develop, robust sleep and wake patterns and to understand what they're communicating to us. So in this drowsy state, it really is useful not to disturb your baby if you can in this transition drowsy state. So this drowsy state is important to consider as you observe and you support your baby when they're transitioning in and out of the sleep and wake states. So by watching and waiting and asking yourself, what your baby is trying to tell you, we can help to smooth out these transitions. And it's using your relationship. The relationship, always we talk about in infant mental health, is really the solution to these challenges. Okay, the sixth state I'm going to be discussing this morning is the state of crying. So crying really is communication. Is it a call for help? Yes, sometimes it is. But we don't necessarily need to equate crying with distress in young babies. It's a normal communication tool. And yes, some babies do cry when they're distressed, but not all crying is distress. And if we sort of think that all crying is distress, that often leads to feelings of worry and anxiety about how we can, stop the distress and how we can fix it. And that can sometimes be really tricky. So from our evolutionary past, we're born with our survival instinct, and we're all primed to run from that, saber-toothed tiger. So this is a fight and flight nervous system, and this is what we're going to be continually dealing with in these early months. And as I mentioned, the calm nervous system is very underdeveloped at birth with babies, and how we respond with babies can have a really significant effect on strengthening these neural connections in what we call this parasympathetic nervous system. I've got a little video here of baby crying. And crying can really often set off these automatic responses for concern and responsibility, and sometimes feelings of guilt when you don't know what's the matter. So as parents, get to know their baby, they will notice that their cries vary in intensity, in the loudness, in the pitch, and also the duration, and even in the level of feeling. And it's very easy to get into the negative feedback loop where we become tense and the babies pick up on that tension. And it can be really helpful also to know that there are different types of cries. I'm just going to share two this morning, the hunger cry versus a pain cry. So a hunger cry, it can begin softly and then it can become loud and rhythmic. This is just a general rule. Whereas a cry of pain can often be a distinct pattern, and it can begin with a shriek that's often followed by a short silence, and even the baby might hold their breath. So over time, as parents begin to recognise these different cries, it will become easier to console their baby. So it's about looking at the body language, face and voice responses, And the face and voice responses of the parent are deeply consoling, and it helps your baby to feel that their new environment is safe. The key is to be able to, track what's going on for you and for us, and to be able to then be present with the baby's cries. So in this state of babies crying, we also often get triggered with our feelings. So if a baby cries in the bath or cries when they're getting their nappy changed, it's likely to bring up big feelings in us. And if we get distressed, it makes it hard for the babies as they take their cues from us. So just imagine if you're showing alarm in your face, imagine what that might look for the baby, because babies will absorb this. They absorb the feelings that we do project. And at the same time, when we do become upset as parents, that's normal too, because every new parent, regardless of how much help and support is available, will have points when they do feel overwhelmed. And when babies cries distress us to the point where we can't manage, this is where we need to ask for help. Or if there's no one around to help, it's okay to put them in a safe space and take a breather, to put some music on for a couple of minutes, some mindfulness, to soothing yourself, to know that you really are good enough, even when you need to do this. And it's also important to acknowledge our upset and to find ways to soothe ourselves. So we call this a process of repair, and we talk a lot about this in the Circle of Security program. Missteps do occur, and actually missteps are actually the foundation for secure attachment relationships. It's about the repeating of this repair process that is so nurturing for our babies' brains and bodies. So it's not a bad thing to make a mistake. Every parent feels overwhelmed at times. If you raise your voice or you get angry at your baby, the time spent in repairing and reconnecting is actually really the how-to of developing that secure bond that will develop and deepen over time. I'm going to share a self-compassion exercise. You're welcome to join in with me. This is about using your own hands to give yourself some calm. So you put your hand over your heart, or you could make little circles, or you could put your hands under your chin, or I love giving myself a hug, or you could just rest your hands in your lap. It really doesn't matter. So our skin, being the most developed organ from birth, it's very sensitive and responsive to touch. Your body responds to this physical gesture of care, just like a baby responds to being cuddled, and it releases that feel-good hormone, oxytocin. And this in turn reduces our heart rate, and it helps to also calm our fight and flight nervous system and to get into our calm nervous system. So I'd like you to take 3 deep breaths from your belly. And I like to say 3 satisfying breaths. So 3 big breaths, acknowledge how you're feeling without any judgment. And as you're breathing, know that there are other parents, there are other people who have babies who are crying right now. And tap into that you're not alone. And then just resting at the end of those 3 breaths and giving yourself a loving message, something like, may I be strong, or may I connect with my baby. So this is the idea of giving yourself that comfort, and that helps to bring your parasympathetic nervous system back into action. Acknowledging how you feel, acknowledging that you're not alone, and then giving yourself a message of strength. So knowing that, the parasympathetic nervous system is very underdeveloped, and knowing that we also get triggered, and it's sometimes hard to get into our parasympathetic nervous system, we can work on that for ourselves as well. And knowing that babies take a lot longer to process information, we can then set some intentions of slowing down, observing our baby's behaviours and wondering together what our baby might be saying. So the brain cells that are used, as I said earlier, get strengthened, and those that don't get pruned. Each interaction results in the incremental changes in baby cells in the grooves that are forming in their neural pathways, connecting through the synapses. Oops, sorry. So this will help your baby to increasingly gain these capacities to be able to weather unpredictable and sometimes overstimulating and uncertain events as their parasympathetic nervous system strengthens and consolidates. And of course, different things in life are going to happen, but we can't change that. but we can change the way that we respond. And I've got a lovely slide here which shares about how we can slow down when our babies are crying, and using these soothability steps from the Newborn Behaviour Observation Handbook, which is led by Kevin Nugent. So the first step, you can respond with your voice. See if your baby is able to console themselves for around maybe 10 seconds, and speak words to console your baby, maybe to express what they're feeling, because babies do have some self-soothing capacities from birth. The second step is to, if that's not working, then you might go to going up close to your baby and using your face and your voice. And if the baby, that might be enough to resettle the baby, or for them to be happy a bit while you go and peel some more carrots or get your dinner ready. The third step is placing your hand on your baby's body or belly or back. And the fourth step, if that's sort of, they need some more support, you might hold their hands, bring their hands into the middle of their chest. It might help them to find their fists and to find some soothing that way. And then it's really the fifth step is, if that's, they're not working, then picking your baby up, putting them in a sling, because we know that that skin-on-skin contact is deeply soothing for your baby. And also that position of bringing their hands and feet in to midline as well helps to bring physical containment to their body. And as we know, this physical holding leads to the emotional holding. So while in the step 6, while they're in their arms, you can rock or sing a song. Talking that, what we call that parentese, babbly type voice, elongating your vowels, like I-E-I-O-U, like R-I-A-E-I-O. That just sort of makes it a really soothing song. And there's a beautiful music therapist called Alison Davies. She lives in Tasmania. She's got lots of songs on YouTube, but one of the ones that she sings, it's very, very simple. And I just sing a couple of lines. It just goes like this, repeated, really, one line repeated. It goes like this: my mind is still, my body is still, my mind is still, my body is still. And you can really make up any words you like. But that repetition can really help to bring that calmness into the room. And then the seventh step there is giving them something to suck that might also help to soothe baby. Okay, we've come to the end of the middle section. Talked about deep sleep and light sleep, and then quiet alert and active alert. And then the final 2 states of drowsy and crying. And also I did touch on that making mistakes is really about being human. Every parent feels overwhelmed at times, and the repair process is really nurturing for baby's brain and body development. And it is the basis of secure attachment relationships. So it's important to slow down, put on the oxygen mask first, encourage regular self-compassion exercises, because our bodies do respond to that physical touch by the releasing of these feel-good hormones. Okay, we've come to the final part of the presentation, talking about serve and return interactions. So, and also this WAWA approach they'll be talking about. So these simple serve and return interactions can really help make strong connections in developing brains. So the baby's serve is in the form of like eye gaze, body gestures, that babbling, or even just those open mouth, and especially in the early months, their mouth and their facial expressions. And then the adults returning those with their eye gaze and their own body gestures and soothing voice and friendly face and our body language. So research continues to demonstrate that sensitive parental care, characterised by prompt and adequate responses to the child's signals and needs, predicts a more secure attachment relationship, higher levels of cognitive competence, and fewer psychological problems. And I've got the research, that article I can send to Jackie as well. And we do know that from 6 decades of attachment research that children who have secure attachment relationships are more likely to get on better with friends, parents, and family, to turn to their parents when they're in trouble, and to be able to successfully, work out problems on their own when they need to. So let's see this example of serve and return conversation using this approach that I learned many years ago now through the Abecedarian project. We had a man, Joseph Sparling, who came and shared with us at the Children's Centre. I'm going to stop the share, and actually before I stop the share, I'll just share those. It's called the 3S method of see, show and say. So I'm just going to stop the share, and I've got my little baby here. So when Joseph Sparling was with us, we were very lucky to have a whole day training with us educators just up at the local children's centre in Heidelberg West. It was a research project looking at supporting families with lots of stresses, and the children came to our centre 5 days a week, and we were following the Abecedarian project. So we had a whole day with Joseph Sparling, and this one memory, well, I have many memories of him, but one of them was just a great aha moment that I'd like to share. So he was sitting in the circle, he had a baby on his lap, and he said, this is often how we read stories to babies. I'm just going to lean back a bit. We have the baby in our lap, we've got the book here, and we open it, they might, look at the different things, and we turn the page, they might tap and go, oh yes, you're tapping the book, and we, read the book, and that's fine. I mean, I still read the book. Oh, can you all still see me? Okay, that's good. Sorry, just something went on my computer. Okay, so this is how he said we often read a story to a baby. So we could just do one little tweak. We can put the baby on our side, and we can put the book on in the other hand. So now we've got like a triangle. So I can see the baby's eyes, and I can see where the baby is looking. So right from the start, we're focusing on what the baby's interested in, rather than always getting the baby to look at what we think they're interested in. We really get firsthand experience of what the baby's looking at. Because in the other method, I might have been pointing to the nose of the monkey, and the baby might have been looking at that leaf in the top corner. So the first step is you can see. So if the baby's looking at the leaf, oh, you can see the leaf. We might turn the page. Oh, what are you looking at now, Sam? Oh, I think you're looking at the hippo. Hippo's yawning. Oh, I can see the hippo. And if the baby's like tapping on the page, you might stop and pause and go, oh, tap, tap, tap. So, they're interested in maybe the feel of the book, or they might bring it up and, feel it in their mouth. We turn the page, and so we continue reading through the book, focusing on where the baby's attention is by looking at their eyes and seeing what they're interested in. So that's the first step. The second step is to show. So they've had 8, 9 months of, oh, you can see the elephant, you can see wherever they're looking. And after that, the next step is show. So they've been listening to that, all that language. And then I say, oh, show me the leaf, Sam. Show me the leaf. By 9 months, you go, oh, we know exactly where the leaf is, because that's what he's interested in. He's heard it for 9 months, and now he can show you. Because we know that babies have much better receptive understanding than expressive understanding. So when they're able to point, they know exactly where it is. And then the third step is say. So you might get to the lion here. You might go, oh, let's say, oh, raw. And then I might point to the word raw. And that just brings up the interest in print and language. And that is just reinforcing, that literacy, or the literacy left to right, and words mean something. And you're focusing on what the baby is showing interest in. And this really leads to deep learning and deep understanding, and that respect for interests and needs of the babies, and that really contributes to their own self-worth and self-confidence in knowing what they love to do in life. So I think that was just such a lovely way that Joseph Sparling shared, and I wanted to share that with you today. Okay. Just going to... Okay, can you all see that? Now we're back on track. Great. So that's that see, show, say method. And I've just got another slide of the see, show, say method. A bit of a tongue twister. There we go. So from birth onwards, you can see, And then the second step, show me. And then the third step, let's say. And, you know, that you can see that can happen all of our lives. I have a friend who did a webinar a couple of years ago when I think it was the first webinar I did on sharing this. And she was living with her 80-year-old mum, and they were having great difficulties. And after this webinar, she said they went down to the Yarra River for a walk. And she just started watching her mum's eyes and where her mum's eyes were looking. And they were looking at these apartments down the road heading towards the river. And she said, "Oh, Mum, you know, what are you looking at there?" And, you know, her mum said, "Oh, I'm just looking at the balconies and just seeing, I wonder what sort of view that people would have. Like that person, I think they maybe might be able to see the river, but that one they probably can't." So, you know, it was just a lovely way of seeing how this can relate to us with, you know, just our general relationships in life when the relationship with her mum was a bit tricky, and she was able to really connect with her mum. And then on the walk on the path, she did the same thing, and they looked at all these beautiful flowers and plants. And coming back home, her mum was making a comment about that she wasn't plugging something in properly. So rather than getting upset about that, she said, "Oh, let's look at that." She was again watching her mum's eyes, and they worked out and fixed up this PowerPoint that was in the wrong spot and needed to be fixed. And so it can be a really lovely, you know, way to connect and focus with the relationship. So telling stories also, we don't, you know, just have to have a story just like this. We can have stories about bath time, about dressing and undressing, nappies, and framing the beginning and the middle and the end. And just like a story. And this helps babies immeasurably. As well as enjoying the moment together, it immerses the baby in the world of language. It helps babies get ready to transition into the next step. So an example a parent shared with me recently was that when she noticed when she didn't say anything to her baby when he was having a bath and she'd take him out of the bath, he would cry. But when she talked to him about what was coming up next, like we're nearly finished, let's get ready, and, you know, emphasizing those key words, that he didn't cry. So again, it's just an example of, you know, slowing down, and this helps sometimes buffering that very easy to trigger fight and flight reaction. So if we use this 3-step storytelling as a way of being with our baby before starting the activity or movement, whether it's going into or coming out of the bath, changing nappies or getting dressed, you can use this back and forward, you know, vocal chatter. And it's so helpful, and it really helps us to keep in the present moment as well. And at around 3 months of age, babies start to anticipate what's coming next. So it's great to build up regular activities like walking at the same time of day, regular bath times, massage times, you know, peekaboo games, and lots of pauses to, you know, help build up that anticipation and to help with that play and, you know, playfulness in the interactions. I'm finishing up with this watch, wait, and ask approach. It's a way of being with your baby using these serve and return interactions. So I've got a little video here, just watching the baby. You know, what do you feel when you see this video, and what do you notice? We can look at where the baby's eyes are looking and what they're attending to, and share with where their eyes are going, what they're focusing on, just like reading a story. And we can just do this in our daily interactions. And then the second step is to wait, because pauses are gold for babies. Resting your eyes on your baby's serve and maybe holding your hands out. As we know, it takes much longer for babies to process information than an adult. And it gives them the message that they're special, that you're intrinsically important just as you are. And ask, the third step. So watch where your baby is looking, be still, and observe using your voice, facial expressions, and body movements. And this encourages your baby. What can you see? You can see the light. And it just means being curious, like, you know, tell me your story. And it is a bit like a guessing game, as earlier with the faces that we tried to guess what the feelings were, because we don't exactly know what they're feeling, but we can start to get a pretty good idea. I remember when my grandson was just a few months old, and he was really scared. I had some new flowers that were on the sideboard. They were bright yellow tulips, and he just had this reaction to them. He just was really scared. So we just stopped, we just paused, And then gradually we sort of moved closer, and then he reached out, he touched them. So what was first seen as, a threat, he ended up realizing that it was safe. And I've got just a story with my husband's mate. So my husband's an engineer, and his colleague is currently, he's retired, and he's looking after his grandchild for 2 days a week. And he said to me recently, he's so proud. He uses this technique when he's putting his grandson to sleep, the see, show, say. And he just comments on what his grandson is looking at as he's getting him ready for bed. And he said he's the only one that can put his grandson to sleep for an afternoon nap. So I thought that was really cool. And it was just through following his grandson's gaze and commenting on what he's interested in. And just before I show this video, there's another, we don't always know what babies are feeling. And when I was working in this children's centre, there was a little girl who, she got really upset one day when I asked her to come back and wash her hands, and she just started screaming at me. She just looked so angry. And I said, I think it looks like you're really angry. And she stamped her feet so hard on the ground. It really looked like anger. She said, I am not angry. I am sad. And then, I said, you're sad. So I just put out my arms, and then she ran into my arms. And she just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed, and was able to really express her sadness. But if I had corrected her and, the anger, it wasn't anger anyway. It was actually sadness. So giving that space and pausing, really we can help to work out really what are the feelings that our children are having. So this is a video clip of my cousin who has cerebral palsy. This is with her 4-month-old baby. And it's a way of talking to babies. It's using these exaggerated high-pitched sounds, which draws attention, which we call parentese. So adding a little pause between every serve starts this process of turn-taking and waiting. And it's a really crucial skill to learn, as these tiny interactions repeated over and over are the beginnings of self-control and getting on with others. So I'll just play the video. I think that's just a lovely video of that, that sharing, that sort of back and forth serve return conversations. So these friendly, supportive responses, they build their confidence and really contributes on this path to secure attachment relationships. Okay. So in summary, I've talked here about the serve and return conversations, the baby's serve and the parent's return, and the importance of the facial expressions and the gestures and use of voice. And then I shared reading the story using the see, show, say method from the Abecedarian project, which is a longitudinal project that's gone for quite a few decades. And then the importance of narrating, that's those everyday stories, the beginning and middle and the end in the everyday activities, creates this enjoyment and it strengthens the relationship. And then the watch, wait. I've written watch, wait and wonder. I meant to say watch, wait and ask, because the watch, wait and wonder also is a really great program, and you can Google that too. It's just wonderful. It talks about baby-led play, and I might give the link if you just Google it, you'll see it anyway, but I can share that as well. I like the idea of watch, wait and ask, and I've also got the other addition of watch, wait and add. When we add things, that can help to scaffold new learning as well with babies and children. So, so I hope you've really enjoyed this webinar on talking about early human brain development and the developmental milestones for babies. And then those 6 behaviour states can be really helpful in understanding maybe what some of their communication cues are giving us. And then these serve and return conversations and the WA approach. So thank you very much. This infant mental health approach acknowledges that each one of us is profoundly tied to our relationships with others, and our first relationships with babies can help to foster, that secure sense of their emerging self, and that they can grow and blossom through the joys and challenges of the roller coaster of life. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin, for such an informative presentation and so beautifully structured and illustrated for us as well, drawing on the depth and the breadth of your experience, personally and professionally. Thank you for all the sharing. We've got a small opportunity for questions now. If there's anything that is top of mind for you that you wanted to ask or get Robin to clarify for you, please either put up your hand if you've got your camera on, or pop a question in the chat and we can read it out. So Robin will stop sharing there so we can see all of your faces. If you are able to turn your cameras on, we're about to go into breakout rooms soon too, so it'd be great to see you, and I know others would like to see you in the breakout rooms. So does anyone have any questions for Robin at this point? Give us a wave, or we've got lots of great thank yous coming through there in the chat for you, Robin. Sabrina, yes.
Hello. Hi, Robin. Thank you for such a beautiful presentation, because I'm exactly going through the stage of nurturing and like caring for my newborn. So like a lot of the ideas just resonate with like my everyday interaction with my kid. So like I've remembered you said about like sleep training at the early like phase. So I know like holding my baby really soothes. It's really soothing for him, and he will definitely fall asleep quickly, like in my like arms, like, and it's on the contrary, when I try to like put him down in his cot, he's like always fuzzy and crying. It takes a lot of effort to soothe him that way and to like put him to sleep. So would you say like there is like a recommended age or phase which I should like start doing that, or like is it like better for his mental health? Actually, I hold him until he's fall asleep, and then put him in his cot afterwards, after he fall asleep. Like what would you say about this? Because like a lot of people would recommend like us to do it early, to like sort of train like the baby to like be independently falling asleep in his cot. So yeah, that's the thing.
Look, that's a really great question. We could talk for a long time about that. What I would say is that, that sleep training really doesn't, this is just my opinion, sleep training doesn't really work for babies. It's about responding to their cues. And the more that you respond promptly and gently to their cues, the more that they'll feel safe and secure. And over time, will be more comfortable, going off to explore. We talk about in this circle of security, when they're feeling comfortable, they go off to explore. So when your baby's feeling comfortable, they will be able to sleep on their own. And we look at the more responsive we are, but responsive not in the way of, oh, I'm worried, because when we respond in, oh, I've got to hold them, all that, can get projected. So when we can respond really, that no nonsense sort of calmness, and we call bigger, stronger, kinder, wiser responses, that helps baby to feel safe and secure, and over time they will gradually be able to settle and sleep. But when it's about following their cues. Now I can't exactly say what to do, but that sort of requires probably further discussion. But there are some really great there's a couple of websites that I'll probably encourage you to have a look at. One is Safe Sleep Space, and another one is it's called Milk and Moon Program. It's with a GP called Pamela Douglas. So and she gives some really good tips on. She's written a book called The Discontented Baby, and that's quite helpful. But the Safe Sleep Space is also very good. And there's also another local lady in Eltham actually called Helen Stevens, and she does a lot on sleep and settling as well. So I hope that's been helpful. But the more you're responsive to, that's right. Often we want them to be independent, but the more that we respond promptly and gently, the more in the long term they will become independent. But babies need to feel that full dependence first, and when they feel that full dependence first, that they are just acceptable for all of their feelings, not that you have to fix a cry, but you can learn to be with a cry, that you are beautiful and loving and lovable. I can delight in you, not in delight as in this is great, you're crying, but be with you through the crying rather than having to fix the crying. It's sort of giving that, saying that you are acceptable when you're crying, just like you're acceptable in all the different states. I hope that's been helpful.
Thanks for that question, Sabrina, and the response, Robin. We've just got two more quick questions and then we'll move into a breakout room. A question for you, Robin. Does the abecedarian project involve parents with intellectual disabilities? Do you know?
Oh, that's a very good question. I know that it was with parents with children from low socioeconomic backgrounds, but I'm not sure about the answer to that question. I have actually, because I've worked in special education for 10 years as a music therapist, and I think so working with children with sort of different levels of cognition, the stages are the same, but they're just slower, so yeah, so the answer to the question, I don't know, but I'm sure if you Google it, I hope you might be able to get some information, or if you can't, I'm happy for you to contact me if you need some more information.
And the last question, what's the basis for understanding babies have trauma responses? At what age, and does this cause concern for parents?
Yes, well, that can happen from birth, because as we know, like we talk about intergenerational trauma that can come from past generations and can come into reactions of babies in the early months. So I think the key really is the trauma is about the reaction. It's not so much about the event, it's about the reaction. So how I would approach that is that you deal with the reaction of what you can observe in front of you with a baby, looking at the behaviour states and that, the friendly face, and bringing that the aim is to bring that, to help with that fight and flight system, which would be probably very over, with a baby who's had trauma really, really, really highly primed, is it how you can, in a very graded, calm way respond to it, because the more we can get so easy into that negative feedback loop with babies who are born with trauma, and it can just if the parents are not confident, it leads into their trauma, and then that's just that negative feedback loop. So how can we sort of break that cycle to really know it's not the parents' fault, they're not doing anything wrong, the baby's, and you can I love these baby stages. You can observe these and it can really help. And this webinar series, actually I've condensed it from a series of 3 webinars, and I'm just thinking, I've got all this other information about the newborn behaviour observation tool and things that can help with questions like this, but I hope that's been helpful.
Thanks, Robin. And definitely people will have access to your contact details if they want to follow up, and the other training that you're running as well. So that's really wonderful to answer those 3 specific questions. I'm going to give you an opportunity now to have a chat with 3 or 4 other people just for about 6 minutes. You'll get an invitation to join the breakout room. Please have your camera on. If you can't, no problem. At the end of the breakout room, I'm going to give you the link to the quiz so you can make your PD certificate after we come back and reflect on that. So you'll just have a few minutes to think about what Robin's presented today and how it might impact on you personally or professionally, and what you could take away from today. So you've got an opportunity to join those breakout rooms now. And welcome back, everybody, from the breakout rooms. I'm glad you've had an opportunity to share some of your experiences of this presentation today, and I hope you can put into practice personally and professionally some of the great wisdom that Robin shared with us today. We have another of these free webinars coming up next month, and I'll send you the link later on today as well to be able to register for that if you're interested. But wanted to thank all of you for being here today, and most especially our presenter, Robin Ball, for this most informative topic today, and I can see everyone's really enjoyed being here. So thank you again, Robin, and look forward to seeing you all next time. Bye now.